Welcome and hello, hello and welcome, welcome and hello, hello and welcome, welcome and hello. Thank you for joining me on a very, very special edition of Un Poco Moss, the show where we give you just a little bit more. Thanks for joining me. Of course, my name is Danny Deals, but they've been known to call me Hurricane Lopez, also Stock Karen, because I am a huge, massive Karen and I enjoy tinkering with the stock market from time to time, just dipping a toe in the water, pushing my fingers into a few pies, as the old saying goes. They've been known to call me Little Danny Cornbread DeCarlo anywhere out in Las Vegas, Nevada, because I am moist. I am doughy and I crumble under pressure. They call me the tugboat because I'm short in stature, pull more than my own weight, and I'm rarely far from my home port. Of course, they call me Stubby Cohiba due to an unfortunate manscaping accident I had about 40 years ago just outside of Miami, Florida. Let's just say I was doing a little manscaping with a Vitamix blender, and you do not want a stainless steel blade spinning at 40,000 RPMs to come in direct contact with your genitals, or you too could earn the nickname Stubby Cohiba. They've also been known to call me DJ Patchy Drizzle, MC Al Dente, and many other things. But if you're formal and you want to call me by my Christian name, of course, you're welcome to do that, which is Tabasco Rojas. I was a former relief pitcher for the Montreal Expos and hold the distinction of having the worst earned run average in the history of Major League Baseball. I never gotten out, but I could certainly end the game and get everybody out of the stadium. But anyway, guys, welcome and hello, hello and welcome. I was gonna do a really idiotic bit about Pimp My Ride because I love that show. 'Cause it just doesn't make any sense, and Neo because I just find it funny. Like Exhibit, that show never made any sense. Like he's like, Exhibit, my little brother's disabled and I take care of him. So, I really need some money for medical bills and a wheelchair ramp. I need the brakes fixed. I just need the car to be reliable so I can get my brother to his appointments and get him to school and stuff. He's like, I hear you. You needed all this stuff for your little brother to help him out. You take care of him, he's disabled. But we went ahead and ignored all that. We gave you 5 flat screen TVs up under your ride. X. Wait, the TVs are under my car? Yeah, they face the street. You can't even see them. It don't make no sense. X. And the people are just like bewildered. Like, now, Justin, I heard you want to be a veterinarian, so you need some nice, reliable transportation. We went ahead and hooked you up with a $50,000 cappuccino maker in back of your ride from Switzerland, full barista quality. It's like X. Like the stuff he did in those cars, like never made any sense. Like, the person was trying to become an engineer, so they put like a giant aquarium in their car, or like just for no particular reason on purpose, they'd put like multiple flat screen TVs just facing directions that didn't make any sense. Like, we got 3 flat screens up in your trunk. X. People are just bewildered. They're like, what the fuck? You could see they were excited, but then they do all those cuts like on Tosh Point oh at the end, and it's just like the whole thing just made absolutely no sense. But anyway, that's kind of my take on Pimp My Ride. Like, I forgot what I was going to talk about. I guess I was going to talk about stocks. Yeah, Neo has earnings tomorrow. Yeah, I've been known to do a fat hey hey hey. I don't do as good a fat Albert as Peggy Hill, but I do what I can. What's going on? We got the great DSDS checking in. We're glad you checked in. Good to see you today, guys. I'm working on the guns, putting on a little gun show. Um, Pretty strong for an old fat guy, but never really do any working out anymore. Just kind of lifting a nice Philly cheesesteak to the old pie hole, maybe some chicken strips, nice cadre of carnitas tacos. You ever eat a baker's dozen of carnitas tacos? Just sit down, take a nice nap. Really a nice Sunday afternoon, I'll tell you what. Am I on mute here, guys? I'm not on mute. So we want to talk Neo. Of course, we're going to start there because Neo has earnings. I think is it pre-market tomorrow, I guess. And then they're expecting that first break-even period for Q4, I guess on a non-GAAP basis, adjusted basis. Got to adjust your schlang, get that thing in line, get it back in the old chonies. But still, if you think about it, that's sort of always been the number one criticism on Neo. Like, hey, people like the cars. Lately, the sales been increasing, the costs are under control, but everybody talks about how there's just going to be more dilution. They're burning so much cash. So if you take away that leg from the bearish narrative, from the bear case, the whole thing kind of falls over because that's the only leg they've had to stand on, unlike my good friend old third leg Oleg Alexandrov coming out of, I believe he's coming out of Ireland. Can't really remember, but anyway, have trouble with my memory because I'm old and things are very, very foggy. They call me the foghorn. They call me honey butter because I'm sweet and I'm trying to be rich. No, anyway, guys, looking to get out of this job and stop doing these idiotic videos and start my barbecue restaurant. So if anybody wants to loan me a couple of $1 million to make that happen, you don't mind losing your entire investment in short order, it'd certainly be a fun ride. And of course, I'd give you a free barbecue, free portfolio reviews. I will wash your car, wash and detail that bad boy for you. Anyway, no, guys, let's talk about NIO. What's been going on with NIO? Everything that NIO has been doing is kind of coming together in the sense that if you look at the product mix, somebody made a comment on my last NIO video saying like, well, do you think it's inevitable that they start to make a profit? What do you think the chances are? All you have to do is look at the product mix to kind of understand what's going on. I think the way they price these EV companies is so stupid because all they care about is raw delivery numbers. I mean, why would a company that sells like a really cheap hybrid and makes very, very little margin on it, why would you count that one delivery for the same thing as you would count an ES8 delivery, which is, sort of the top of the market, very high margin, very in demand. And NIO's in kind of a unique spot because they have that really high margin, sought after, high end of the market SUV. And that turns out to be their most popular vehicle, their most popular in demand. It turns out that it's taking market share actively from other companies, basically all other companies, because NIO is just really consolidating their leadership in the upper end of that SUV game. And then you have the ES9 coming out, which is going to be the biggest pure EV SUV, in China, and it's going to be ultra luxurious, like the ET9. They sold out of those pretty quickly, but that was sort of that executive jet type of, low flung saloon car, to quote Jeremy Clarkson or James May. I could give her. I really couldn't give a rat's ass about Jeremy Clarkson, but I am a huge fan of Captain Slow. Um, if you guys are fans of the original Top Gear program, now that one they did in the United States was awful, awful. Rutledge Wood, that other, that Rutledge Wood guy was okay, and that Italian guy from Beer League, he was pretty good, but that freaking race car guy was, I just couldn't stand that guy. Just a schmuck. Like, I'm like, why put somebody on TV who just has the personality of a bucket of white paint? It's like, it's just garbage. But anyway, I thought, they ruined the franchise. I mean, the Italian one was pretty good, other European ones, different casts, but for some reason, like the American. Now, one of the things we did, I thought pretty well, was The Office. The British Office was hilarious. Ricky Gervais, or however the hell you say that. But I actually kind of prefer, and I usually prefer that very dry British humor. I mean, I'm a big fan of, Monty Python, all kinds of other things. I love British rock music, all that stuff. But I actually prefer the American version of The Office just because it's more simple, more dumbed down, more jokey. I just thought it was a great cast, great ensemble cast. Even all this sort of bit players were really good. And then I like that Kevin guy because he's chunky like me and he makes a great barbecue. I've seen his cooking channel on YouTube. You see all these like, celebrities from shows past that were on YouTube. I was like, we saw some magic show the other night in Hollywood, and it turned out the magician was like on this sitcom Fuller House for like 6 years. Totally weird. And I like kind of recognize the guy. I'm like, what? It's full circle. But anyway, who else is here? The great Keen's Tam. You don't need a million for barbecue. I guess smoker. Yeah, no, I can already make barbecue. It's just really hard to get a business started in LA County. Is there an echo, Billy Jack? What's going on with the echo? Need some noise cancellation. I don't know. Yeah, he loves smokers. Smokers are jokers. Not a lurker. The great not a lurker has joined us. Great J Money in the house. The greatest fintech wrench in the history of the business. I take no second chair to the Canadian FinTurd Mafia and some of their many moderators. We only need one moderator. We still have the great Alberto Bertiavalas, but we have no idea where he is. He's off doing his thing. Should probably collect and sign. Probably decide there's more money in signing than options. Just digging up signing across the country. Anyway, yeah, reboot Billy Jack. Do a Billy Jack 2.0, much like the Tevis 3000 2.0, my AI companion. Definitely don't get me started. You'll never get me stopped, and you'll lose your grip on sanity very, very quickly. You got to watch Clarkson's Farm. It's fucking jokes. Yeah, Jeremy Clarkson is a pretty funny guy, but I don't know. I just find him a little bit, it's too much. It's too much for me. That's okay, Billy Jack. Maybe you're just listening to the show inside of an aluminum can. Who knows? What's up, Zunker? Is that Philip Zunker coming out of his bunker? I can't remember your name. What's up? Howdy, welcome, and hello, good sir. We got SRM Contracting. I have a trailer smoker I built out of. Ooh, nice. Yeah, bring it on over. I'll gladly pay you Tuesday for an industrial smoker today. Now, the unfortunate reality is in LA County, where I'm located, you can't do an outdoor smoker. You can't do a real pit. If you are going to grill outdoor, it has to be over a direct flame. You can't do anything offset. So you can't use a real smoker outside. So you're left with, sort of your indoor options like, I don't know, your old hickories and the other, fast, steady cook shack. That's not how I prefer to make barbecue, but you can still make some damn good barbecue that way. So, you got to do what you got to do. The great Mac P has joined us. Yo, 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 Mac P, what's going on? Now I'm saying, like, of course I know what you're saying. I'm awake and you're speaking English. Now I'm saying, um, who the hell is this? Anyway, guys, welcome and hello and welcome to the great Jay Bizzles. Yeah, so let's talk about some of these stocks, guys. Yeah, Trump already is trying to taco. The problem is I don't know if the Iranians are going to let him taco. Because again, they, call for negotiations, and while they're negotiating, he basically, assassinates or whatever you want to call it, wars their, entire leadership, their theocracy and stuff. And then they appointed the guy's son. And so, I don't know. What have you really accomplished? You cut the world's natural gas supply down by about 25%. You've cut oil completely frozen the oil supply basically in the Middle East. If there's any winner in this, it's Putin. I mean, I don't know how much more obvious that could be, or the Chinese with their sort of interventionist, expansionist, very slow ticking. So, I mean, I'm glad. I think these guys are evil, and I think the regime is evil, and I think they're horribly oppressive. Their human rights record speaks for itself. It couldn't be more abysmal. The terrorism, all these things, but I still just feel in the back of my mind like they really went into this thing with really no plan what to do after they, cut the head off the snake and went after the leadership. Now I know they're trying to obviously and are rapidly degrading Iran's military capabilities in terms of like their navy and air force and air defense, but that was really never their strength. They basically rely on missiles and drones, to project power and handing off weapons capability to proxy groups, whether it be, Hezbollah or the Houthis or, many other sort of what we'd consider to be terrorist organizations, or at least Israel would. Um, but essentially I think even Rubio came out and said, like, Israel kind of pushed us into this thing, and then Trump said the other day, when the war ends will be a joint decision between myself and Netanyahu. So it's kind of a direct admission, I guess you could say, that Israel is kind of controlling our foreign policy, which I don't really like that in terms of America first or anything like that. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. I'm not saying you don't strike Iran, but I think you do it on our terms, not on the Israelis' terms, and you prepare our citizens, and you sort of you let them negotiate. I know Iran doesn't negotiate in good faith, but how do you say, the West or we're negotiating in good faith when you're in the middle of negotiations? You kind of launch these strikes, and they've done this twice, and that's Iran's acting foreign minister or whatever. They say, "Are you interested in a ceasefire?" Like, we're not asking for a ceasefire. Why would we negotiate with you guys again? Like, you don't negotiate. You just, lull us into a false sense of security with these fugazi negotiations, and then you launch this a massive barrage to destroy our country. And I mean, I don't know. I can't really fault him for his logic there, but PAG's earnings beat with profits 43 cents. Ray's outlook on the fidelity.com saying beat 9 cents, rating 9.7. I mean, very bullish with upgrades, $14 in Brazil. Interesting, Michael Anthony. You are my hero, baby. PAG's book value is now since earning. Yeah, I know you really like that stock. You mentioned it a few times. When Trump attacked, he didn't know he would kill the leaders in one go, and he has no one left to negotiate with. No, he has people to negotiate with. I mean, the president's still alive. The foreign minister is still alive. The regime is really left unchanged. In fact, the last supreme leader, his son, has now been appointed the new supreme leader. So I don't think you're going to get much, sort of evolution on that side. I think it's pretty much going to be a carbon copy of what you got before, which is just it's very hard to negotiate in terms of these you know, fundamentalist theocracy type people who are, I would argue, just religious fanatics incapable of, sort of rational policy making. But that's just me. Anyway, SoFi yo-yos until rates come down. Yeah, the or is he one leg? Is this true? I honestly don't know, Payush. I hadn't heard that. Yeah, if you kind of look at this real incredibly quick spike in energy costs, a lot of people speculate that it'll go much, much higher. You have to look. Maybe EV is kind of a winner, but obviously stock like prop, which is, a pure energy play, is a bigger winner. So you have NIO up, 3.5%. You have a stock like prop up 20% today, but that's kind of I don't know, a little bit disingenuous or whatever the right word would be, because prop has been suppressed so far down, still I think trading at an absurdly low level at $113 million market cap. Even with full dilutions, they're like, okay, the proven reserves only 2.5 billion. Well, that's what's proven. I think what's becoming crystal clear about prop is that they bought some really, really great ground at really, really low prices. And that's where the value add is. That's where they create the value for shareholders if they can execute. And the new CEO, there's absolutely no doubt this guy can execute the strategy. And they're already executing the strategy. I know people would have rather seen 30,000 instead of 28,000 barrels per day, but I think nobody can argue that they're, shitting the bed or anything like that. They've actually done a fairly good job. But what's going on with NIO, guys? They're firing on all cylinders. I mean, like I said, they have their highest demand for their highest priced, high margin vehicle in the ES8. You have the ES9 coming in, which is obviously not going to sell those types of numbers, but is going to have incredibly good margins. If you take a look at the chart, um, you see a nice move come back up here off $4.40. We're back up over $5 now. And there was a lot of noise all through here, settling at 5, all through December. The stock settled at 5. And then again in February, settled at 5. 5 was resistance here back in January. And then, of course, the stock was rejected here at this top of the channel. I don't really go up here because I think this gap was kind of a fugazi. And then you see resistance. You see this support here where this line is on the top at $5.30. And then you see that obviously become resistance. Small breakout. And then right. And then again. So I think it's going to break out of this channel on really good earnings. And more importantly, I hope there's some surprise announcements. They really never seem to do that. It's a company that kind of roadmaps things, so you don't really get any, blockbuster bounces, no matter what happens. But I think if they are profitable, even on like a non-GAAP adjusted basis or whatever the case may be, it really, like I said, kicks the major leg out from under that bear case. But that's just me. And then looking just at the news a little bit, let's see anything going on in terms of NIO. There was one article here that I found really fascinating, because another kind of knock on NIO is that it's behind in AI and smart driving. And if you guys didn't know, they just last month, I think, or January, they rolled out a huge update to their smart driving software and pushed it out to their cars. And NIO's smart driving use, am I on mute? I'm not on mute. NIO's smart driving uses surges in first full month after world model update. So NIO smart driving topped 200 million kilometers. And what's a kilometer in February, jumping 81% just from January. So that follows the major software update. NIO witnessed a massive surge in usage of its smart driving features during the first full month after rolling out its new NIO World model software to users. Said in a statement Monday, the total mileage driven using smart driving systems surpassed 200 million kilometers in a single month for the first time in February. The record mileage represents 81% jump from January. Use of urban navigate on autopilot feature also saw a substantial jump, with total mileage and driving time increased by 76% and 82% respectively. Compared to the previous month, in February, the number of users who spent more than half of their driving time using smart driving features skyrocketed by 210%. The surge in usage followed a major update in the software push to vehicles in late January, which aimed to provide a more human-like driving experience. A travel surge during China's Spring Festival holiday from February 15, February 23 also contributed significantly. Starting February 18, NIO's smart driving assistance system recorded daily usage exceeding 10 million kilometers for 6 consecutive days, with urban piloted driving usage surging 345% compared to last year's Spring Festival period, the company said last month. The major software update was initially rolled out to over 460,000 existing NIO vehicles equipped with the Banyan system and 4 NVIDIA Orin X chips, and was subsequently provided to newer models featuring NIO's in-house developed Shenji NX 9031 autonomous driving chip. The company said this marks the first time in China that complete closed-loop reinforcement learning has been applied to smart driving research and development, and also added a new navigation feature between urban battery swap stations. NIO's engineers are currently developing the next iteration of the software. The company plans to further increase its investment in cloud training and computing in 2026. Let's see, guys. Can you still hear me? Let's see. Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate that, my friend. Glad we're friends with everyone again. They have the most beautiful women. Of course, my opinion. Thank you, Billy Jack. I heard that. Let's see. Missing a leg. ExxonMobil has been ripped before the war. Good for 401k and RSUs. Tuned in, just came in time for prop. What's up, SJ77? Yeah, I'm going to talk about prop, but it's going to be just a little later. Prop just gapped up today. I have a feeling it will come back down and probably will still be stuck in that channel you drew until earnings prove they can execute. Well, yeah, I mean, they definitely do need to prove that they can execute, but I think the new CEO, his decades and decades of execution, he speaks for itself. I mean, he knows how to get the resource out of the ground. They've got the hedge, which may not be good because energy prices went up, but they still have, a certain amount of upside. They didn't hedge all their production. Carl says NIO is either going to be a pump and dump or a dump and dump. Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt. I actually disagree with you. If you start to look at the short interest, you start to look at the Dulcolax liquid gel. And I actually was not searching for constipation relief, but there you go. You guys will never believe me. But yeah, I understand what you're saying. Don't tell me, show me. I regret not loading up more SMCI at 30 today. Yeah, SMCI has been stuck, algo held in the same place for like 4 or 5 months. And that's no accident. The big boys are accumulating every single share of yours that they can down in the, 30, 31, 29. They don't care because they're going to move the stock. And when they move the stock to 80 or 100 or 120, they don't care if they bought at 29 or 32. The bottom line, that ER was an absolute home run, and that should have moved the stock back up to 40 or 45, but they stepped on it with their big, Ronald McDonald Shackfoot. I have a body like Grimace. Everybody wants a body like Grimace. No, is that Grimace? Is that purple guy? No, I think I might be thinking of the Hamburglar. Grimace has a body like a gumdrop. So do I. We have one thing going. Kathy Wood hasn't bought NIO, or is that Jim Cramer to make a comment? Yeah, I think he has commented on NIO before. He doesn't like any. Jim Cramer doesn't like any of the Chinese EV stocks. I think at one point he might have recommended Lee, but I think he turned cool on. This was many years ago, years and years ago. So I don't know. Yeah, but I agree with you. I'd just as soon have Kathy Wood out of the stock. I don't need it. Check out another biotech, Intelia. Yeah, it's I think was it they took Intelia off restriction? Was that the one, or was that a different company? But I know essentially regulators in the US with the FDA and this administration are very, very hot on these gene therapies. So we'll go into that a little bit when I talk about CRISPR here. But thanks, Keynes. Yes, the great Carl Seamark's joined us. Great Carl Seamark, the Mattress King of Chicago. Thank you, not a lurker. Thank you, not a lurker, the FinTech Wrench King of Southern New Jersey. He's been working with Tony Soprano, trying to get those garbage routes in order, trying to get the kids stop selling drugs on the garbage routes, but it's not easy. It's not easy. But I think Janice took care of that. Old Richie April. I don't have time for this. You guys want to hear a Richie April? I do so many useless impressions. Remember former center left? I don't know if he died. I hope not, but he looked like Fred Flintstone, former center left political talk show host Ed Schultz. I think he was from Minnesota or something. The folks are the folks, and the folks ain't no jokes. He used to just say folks all the time, like way too much. I couldn't stand it. I don't know. Like, I'm not really politically one way or the other, but the liberal talkers are so boring. They play it straight. They try to give you actual information. The conservative guys tend to go for a little more red meat, a little more sensationalism, tends to be a little more fun. Yeah, I'll definitely check my drugs at the door, Billy Jack. But you can't take them, you can't use them. I wish I was sponsored by Dulcolax, but no, unfortunately, it's not a product I need. Kind of going the other direction due to my excessive taco and salsa consumption. Would you buy SMCI, SMCX? I'm just worried about I'm not too worried about the decay. Normally, yes, with these leveraged ETFs, I would agree with you, MacP. But the thing I don't worry about that because SMCX is just because I believe the magnitude of the move. I believe the company is so mispriced. Now with SoFi, I have like 50 times more SOFI than I do SOFA because or maybe 100 times more because SOFA just came out and gobbled up I don't know how much. It's quite a bit, but I have a massive SoFi position from way back. So I just don't need to play around with it too much leverage on SoFi. But right now I'm really loading the boat on SMCX. I'm very comfortable that there's a floor here, and we'll take a look at that when we get into some of the charts here in a little bit. The shirt master has a new pair of underwear on. He's ready to go. I know I should be buying the dip, but I'm not sure now's the time. Blow all my cash. The index. Yeah, I mean, you definitely don't want to go all in here, Carl. This could be a little bit of a false rally, a little bit of a relief rally, but it just depends how this whole war goes, what it does with energy prices. I mean, energy prices spike so much so quickly, and everything sort of is based. I mean, the world still runs on oil. The world still runs on these types of old energy, and it affects everything because transportation goes up, and then the price of goods go up. Of course, energy is one of the main drivers of real inflation. Price of food will go up. It's not just the price of gas, it's everything relies on petroleum, on how the whole world economy relies on a stable energy supply, and not just stable in terms of how much is available but in terms of price stability. So when you have these extreme shocks to the system, it's very, very unpredictable. So I would agree with you, not to just put all your cash in. I agree with Carl. It barely even dipped. Yeah, it's a fair perspective. I just hope it moves within the next 2 to 3 months. I can't follow any comments. How is it the Veritiv stock's $100 billion market cap at SMCI's name? Guys, SMCI is a project stock. Market makers are controlling the price, and it's completely disconnected from the fundamentals. It doesn't make any sense. And that's why it's such a strong buy in my book, because I think they're running a scam. I think they're trying to buy all the shares from retail at 30 and 31. So when they run the stock back up to all-time highs, as they continue to crush it and take market share, and I think their margins will improve with the data center building blocks, all this new stuff you're seeing, all these new use cases for what they do. I think SMCI is like the sleeper of the century. And I think everybody who's still hung up on the account, let's see, we need another ER, obviously, to confirm due to the, customer concentration, like 60% of their revenue or whatever from last quarter was one customer. So that's very scary to the street because you think, okay, you might have 13 billion this quarter. And if, say, the next quarter, that major project that they were counting on to, meet those revenue and profit projections, say that's delayed another quarter, well, maybe they're back to, 6 billion in sales from so it's this roller coaster, and I think, there's a short on the stock, and I think just the intelligentsia will obviously tell you one thing and do another. They tell you to be fearful of the stock, be fearful of the accounting, all the while they're accumulating all the shares they have, and of course, huge insider positions with the founders, Uncle Chucky and Aunt Sarah. Um, but anyway, the engineers are currently at NIO developing. Sorry, guys, I'm so all over the place, but I have the attention span of a fruit fly. You saw rebounds in a lot of stocks like Micron last night. It was around 345. Yeah, I mean, that was everything, guys. I mean, everything I looked at was basically down a ton besides, obviously a stock like Prop and the oil stocks. Like, but those companies are going to do well. And you look at who's, like company like SoFi, if the economy goes south and, big shocks to the economy, unemployment, defaults, I mean, they're going to be one of the companies that are probably going to get hit hard. And then you have some other companies that I would argue will do just fine, like Supermicro. Supermicro is not selling anything to consumers. Google and whoever else they're selling to, X and Elon, they're not going to lose their jobs. They're spending roadmap and Microsoft and all this stuff. The spending roadmap is not going anywhere, I don't think, regardless of what happens to the economy. Now, they may have to slow down if, demand takes a complete shit, but I just think AI is inevitable. The AI spending, I think SMCI is going to take a good amount of that market share. And yeah, IOVA has been moving like a tremendous machine, to quote Seabiscuit. Um, yeah, Payush likes to shout, man, but Payush is representing Memphis and they're loud, dude. He's doing a street takeover right on my comment section. So that's the way it is. And we don't question Payush here on this channel. He's a man of many talents. But Brian McLaughlin with Brian with a Y, he's not loving it. I love IOVA making, yeah, me too. It's me too. I had bunch of calls on that one off the lows, and wow, wow, they are printing. I mean, they are printing like a motherfucker. But anyway, let's take a look over here. So this is some more NIO news just for shits and giggles. You had NIO ES9 will start deliveries in China on June 1. And if you thought margins were good on the ES8, the ES9 is just going to be absolutely ridiculous. One battery swap less than every half a second. NIO sets new record for 4 consecutive days. Think about that. They're doing a battery swap more frequently than every half a second. I mean, this is not going away. Swap is already reaching critical mass. I mean, consumers love Swap. It's sticky. It gives you a moat. It brings consumers in and keeps them in the brand for a lifetime. Because I think once somebody gets used to Swap, they're not going to want to go anywhere else. That's how much people in China love it, at least according to my sources, which are very shaky at best. It took NIO 2 days to set a new daily battery swap record. China travel rush continues. Sets. You basically got the idea. It's battery swap company successfully issues. They just got investment kind of through that into the battery swap, battery management. Then they got another round of investment into the chip. So the range has been revealed. They got a recall. I don't know. That was for some screen issues. So not super worried about that one. The range information on ES9 has been revealed. So you have a choice depending on the pack of, or it's the same pack, but the range options are 580, 600, and 620. I'm not sure exactly why, but this car is going to be absolutely huge. And just look at that baby. I mean, that is a good looking vehicle. That's a vehicle people want to buy. I mean, it's a lot like the ES8. It's just kind of stretched and widened. I think the line is just really, really nice. Kind of reminds me a little bit of that old Infinity line. But obviously mixed with sort of some Range Rover and different elements. But I think NIO, in their defense, actually kind of has their own styling and their own design aesthetic. So they're not just like ripping off Mercedes or ripping off Range Rover or anything like that. It's, legitimate. But, in terms of this vehicle, it has 700 total horsepower. Maximum top speed is limited to 220 kilometers per hour. But I think this is just very exciting because it's a flagship. It's a technological showpiece. It's something that the very, very top end of consumers in society are going to want to be seen in. So I think it bodes well for NIO. Now, what happens with price action tomorrow in terms of earnings? People are saying it's going to get stepped on. It really depends a lot on institutional ownership. Institutional ownership is still very low, but I think they've been accumulating in the deep cut. In the cut, bro. If any of you guys were raised in the 80s, like, keep it in the cut, bro. Like, just means keep it quiet. Keep it on the DL. What do you guys say? Is this NIO? What the hell is going on here? I don't know why my computer is totally unresponsive. My internet out. Raiders need a moat. Raiders need something. Raiders need a total reboot. I don't know what the hell's going on with my computer here, guys. Should have replaced this Tandy. Yeah, so institutional ownership on NIO is actually, it's been stable the last 4 months, which is not really what you want to see. I mean, it has recovered to a large degree, but it's still very, very low because they have a ton of shares. And I just think Mr. Market sees too much competition, fears consolidation, fears, CATL eating or, Choco Taco on the battery swap front. But I really think this swap thing is reaching critical mass. And though NIO doesn't have any partner cars announced as yet, well, they had those announcements years ago that never really came to fruition. But in any case, I think NIO is able to actually go it alone. And I think their vehicles are becoming popular enough. And I think once Firefly has viable swaps, that'll start selling, incredibly well. It was kind of orphaned there. They were going to go with CATL network. That didn't work out. So, that sort of back and forth, all those changes in the terms and the design, I think it really set them back in terms of the Firefly roadmap. And probably, if I don't miss my guess, CATL just screwed us over in a lot of different ways, but I have no proof of that. Let's see. We got the great Payush Balaka here coming out of Memphis, Tennessee. Got to put some spinning rims on. It was just so ridiculous what X would do to those cars, man. They had those guys in there from like West Coast Customs or whatever it is, and they ended up getting in some weird situations later. One of the allies of USA is helping Iran. They got Tomahawk missiles. Well, I know the Russians are helping Iran. They've made that pretty clear. Um, yeah, I don't. There's no. They if you're talking about that girls' school that got hit with a tomahawk, no, that was America just making a mistake. Iran didn't shoot that school as a false flag. I don't believe that. Um, yeah, no, we're the only country in the theater that has tomahawks, and we launched a bunch of tomahawks. There's footage of us launching a bunch of tomahawks, and they probably targeted something in error because tomahawks don't miss their targets. Tomahawks don't go off course. Those fucking things are money in the bank. But no, I know we didn't try to shoot the school and kill a couple hundred kids, but unfortunately, I think we did. Um, yeah, no, Iran didn't reverse engineer tomahawks. We would know that. Our intel would know all that. You guys understand how deeply Israeli intelligence is implanted into every bit of Iranian society. They hacked all the traffic cameras for like 3 years to learn how the Ayatollah moves, all his movements. That's how they were able to kill a lot of the leadership in one fell swoop. So no, I don't believe Iran reverse engineered a tomahawk, and then the only use that they ever did with the tomahawk was to blow up their own girls' school to blame it on America. Because what do you really accomplish? I mean, turn the world against this war? I mean, I think the world is pretty much already against the war, just based on how it's going to crush, the world economy. But no, I personally don't believe that. I think we just had some bad targeting information and ended up hitting a school. I know we hit a lot of hospitals too. I think it's the World Health Organization is, filing some kind of a grievance thing, stop hitting the hospitals. But I'm no expert on these things. I guess anything's possible, but I think the most logical explanation is usually sort of the most obvious and simple one, and that's the country with tomahawks and shooting a ton of tomahawks. No, Iran does not have Tomahawk cruise missiles, Payush. I don't. That's not. I don't know what you're basing that on, but you know, nobody else in the theater has Tomahawk. Now, other countries, I'm sure, have Tomahawk missiles that have purchased them from us, but I don't think any of those countries is, shipping them. Now, it's possible. Obviously, China has, cruise missiles, and they could have given those to Iran, and I know they're helping Iran with critical chemicals, and China pretty much helps whoever, is anti-US interest. They're, our friend's enemy is our friend's tiny wing or something like that. But no, I think it was just a targeting error, and we ended up hitting the school. And might have thought it was some type of, government installation or leadership, and just made a mistake. That's would be my guess, but I have no, I don't know. Fernando Mendoza would be a legit QB, but he can only do so much for the Raiders. Yeah, that's the problem is the Raiders keep trying to plug in one puzzle piece when you need sort of a ground up rebuild that revamps the entire like mentality and the entire I don't know, just the mentals of the team have been so fucked up for so long. It's like just this losers mentality where you expect the team to fall apart not only in the third quarter of every game, but also in the second half of every season. And if you are going to make the playoffs by some miracle, that's the miracle. And you don't expect, obviously, the Raiders to actually do anything. So it's just become sort of this really drudgery losers mentality of an organization where they just I don't think they expect to win. I don't think the expectations are high. Like everybody, thought they were going to bring back Gruden and that was going to be some miracle. And then I went and watched those games, a few games in person. It was the same exact Raiders. It was like, you'd see that the defensive effort started to fall apart. Everybody started looking tired. And then, in the second half, they're just getting absolutely picked apart by, some like weak Chargers teams or whatever you happen to see over at SoFi or over at Stebhab. Before before SoFi Stadium was ready, the Chargers were playing over at Stebhub. It's like this little tiny soccer stadium at Cal State Dominguez or something. It's not even remotely an NFL stadium, but they I think they did 2 years over there. I remember at one point paying like $150 for non-tailgate parking. It was just absolutely ridiculous. But um, Trump is going to claim it. So yeah, I mean he's already saying that. He's just going to declare victory and go home and just leave, the whole region in complete chaos, which I don't know how any of this helps our interest. Yeah, if you were going to go in and do regime change and install a new regime and completely eliminate the military terrorist threat and all this stuff and see it through and have a many, many years process this and you had the stomach for it and you had the stomach for $200 oil, but I feel like maybe either Israel pushed us in this or it was distraction from the Epstein files. It was basically feeding the base red meat to get them enthusiastic about the midterms because they see the writing on the wall that there's this huge enthusiasm gaps and all these libtards are turning out to vote in record numbers and winning all these special elections. That was kind of a shout out to Rush. Megadildos. Like as a little kid, I was, had to listen to a lot of Rush, and he was a great showman. Rush was like a sports TV guy, I think, with the Kansas City Royals, and then he figured out, I think, kind of like L. Ron Hubbard, that this was a great way to make money. I don't know how much of this stuff he believed in, but he was like, it's kind of like a lot of these guys are like thrice divorced, and then they're big professors of these Christian family values, but then you sort of don't see those values show up in their lives. Major shareholders, what the hell am I talking about? I completely forgot. I hate going into politics because it's like it's such a mess. It's such a mess. Sorry about that, guys. Let's see. Yeah, I got some bills to pay, but I want to go over these other stocks. I'll try to do it relatively quickly, but I wanted to just update NIO short interest, see how that might affect things, and I'll try to run through the other stocks pretty fast. Um, let's see. I hope you're right, Payush. Poco, can you speak with Papa Noto and have him call Uncle Chucky and get us running again on SMCI? Uncle Chucky can tell the world the margin compression isn't unique to just them. Sure, I can do that. Yeah, he'll definitely take my call. Starting the national championship game. It's like Russia's intro music. Boom, boom. Yeah, it's kind of goofy. I prefer trending stocks at synthesizer, but I'm going to do a lot of bets on Fernando Mendoza rush TD. If he doesn't toss it, quarterback or pass, QB all his legs to rush it in. Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. Yeah, Payush, I like where your head's at, bro. I like where your head's at. Anyway, what the hell was I talking about? Yeah, if you look at the NIO short, it basically went up a little bit today, back up to 8%. If you look at where it's gone, it was just creeping up a little bit over the last few weeks, and then cost to borrow is still relatively low, but if you look at what was going on before this, back in this dip, you had 135 million shares sold short and way less than that on loan, 86 million. And now it's basically reached parity here where there's like 160 million shares sold short and 165. So it's a little bit neutral. I don't think market makers are really, decided yet which way they're going to push this thing. I know ultimately they're going to try to push back down, but down from where? Are they going to, run it up to 8 or 10 or 550 or 530 and then push it back down into the fours and try to further demoralize us tiny wing retail pikers, us shine box all stars, us truck stop restroom hustlers. The old, what was that song? He's like, I forget. It was a song about a restroom attendant. He's like, he issues the tissues and passes out the towels and listens to the roar of the other people's bowels. I think it might have been Bloodhound Gang. I can't really remember. Curious tomorrow when dirt interest info comes out on IOVA. You think it still has some room to run? I think it has a lot of room to run because the shorts didn't cover anything at the lows. It still got like 33% of the float sold short. Let's see, guys. I gotta turn off this buzzer. It keeps buzzing on me. And also, let's see. All this is. Yeah, I know I have a tour at one. They never see you guys. If you guys are property managers, like you go to show like apartments or houses, like 3/4 of the people just never show up. It's very frustrating. You end up just sitting in some vacant shitbox apartment with, playing a little pocket pool while you wait for, Smyrna or whoever to show up. They just never show up. You're like, send them a message. Hey, I've been waiting for you for 30 minutes. Gonna make the showing. Like, oh, I thought I canceled it. I canceled it with your assistant. I don't know who'd you talk to. What number did you call? It's like Tommy Boy, like 749er. Is there a niner in there? Get in the car. Oh, Richard. I think we're gonna be fine here because they have a hard candy shell. Surprised you didn't know that. Anyway, guys, I could blather on all day, as you know, but let's talk about SoFi. Got this pop here, everything got kind of at the end of the day. So, SoFi, as I've been talking about, has been like magnetized back toward 1850. You see it pre-market. You see, even when the stock makes big move, like pre-market here, it's up to like 1930. By the time the day's over, back to 1850. You see another big move up here. Same exact move basically to 1940. Same exact move here as it was here, and then boom, pulls all the way back down near 1850 and all the way 1870, all the way back up again, the same level. Boom, back down, held here 1850, back up, back down. So you know, even with the stock popping up a little bit 1880, you have to think they were going to pull it back down to the 1950 area. It's just been sort of what they're doing lately. But what you'll notice with SoFi, really nice volume again, 75 million shares. Now, I know they're churning and burning and fixing the price and all that fun stuff, all those conspiracies we like to engage in. But the bottom line, I don't think retail's dumped here. And that's what they count on. And that hasn't happened. So if you look at the chart for SoFi, I don't know where I got this channel, but it's still in this little channel. It's kind of a bullshit channel. I don't even know what this is supposed to be. Who drew this? Some fucking moron, some fat jerk. No, but I think this line is kind of interesting because, again, it was a little bit of resistance here on the way up, and then obviously it went up and it came back down and it kind of stopped the free fall near this line. But honestly, I don't even know what I'm drawing. I don't know what this channel is. I don't know what the fuck's going on. There's not the thing is the new I know SoFi didn't get in S&P 500. I wasn't really expecting it to. I've been saying later in the year that's when we're going to get in, and I still believe that. But there's so much good news, so much compelling, innovative, cutting edge stuff coming out from SoFi. It's not just the stable coin. It's not just the MasterCard deal. It's how, the loan platform business is really the key to the near term here. I mean, the remittances and the MasterCard stuff, it might take a little bit to pay dividends. But this business was hitting on all cylinders before we knew any of this stuff. But you see, SoFi is making these moves to own the future. They're doing the foundational work that's going to provide the durable competitive advantage for years and decades to come versus their peer group. And I remember, I think it was Rob Ferreira or one of my viewers said in a comment, like, hey, I'm in the car business and we're seeing auto loans start to default in higher and higher numbers, which is, you know, basically going to predict that that's going to start to happen across the board, not just with auto loans, credit cards, personal loans, et cetera, et cetera. And I agree with you that SoFi would not be immune to any such downturn or carnage, but relative to their peers, relative to their competition, I still think SoFi is going to be in the best position to sell loans at the best rate, to make loans, to survive, to have the lowest charge offs and defaults because they have the most stringent underwriting criteria. So if you loan to the highest quality borrowers with the best credit, the best income, the best jobs, you're going to get into a lot less trouble when the economy goes bad, because that tends to hit people at the margins a lot harder than it hits people with high incomes and professional jobs. I mean, if you're, a lawyer or an engineer or some type of coder or computer programmer, computer science, whatever the case may be, and you make a really nice income and have really good credit, does the price of gas or the price of bread affect you as much as someone working for, you know, lower wages that's just trying to pay rent? And that's where it hits. It doesn't hit the investor class, it doesn't hit sort of the upper middle class, it hits the lower middle class, it hits the working poor quite hard. And because they have to buy gas to get to work. Now if you don't work and you get benefits or whatever, you're nothing's really going to change. But unless the government stops, let go all over Anthony. SoFi takes time, low and slow. I was supposed to buy 500 shares in the sixes, but because it took forever to move, I ended up with a lot more. Yeah, well, happy accident, Mopar. Happy accident. Yeah, I think loading up here, you know, but Julie Warner got Doc Hollywood. Yeah, it's a good scene. Very good scene, Payush. Payush is spending a little bit too much time over on Mr. Skin. Yeah, she was super hot in Tommy Boy. She's her brother was the cops over in Cuyahoga Falls. Then she messed up the shipping invoices when what's his name? What's that guy's name? Brother? He came and he was like making out with the mom, and he came into her office. Rob Lowe. Rob Lowe was good in the Tommy Boy. It was a funny movie. But yeah, the combination of Spade and Farley was just magic. Anyway, I don't have any idea what I'm talking about. But yes, SoFi I just think is massively undervalued. I mean, you saw my model. I think it's going to be a minimum of $1 a share next year. I heard, it's undervalued, and everybody's like, well, forward EPS is 36. I mean, I think forward EPS is 18, 19. So that's almost half of where they're at. I just think they're so incredibly wrong about the incremental margins, about how much of these new revenues are going to fall to the bottom line, and about how much new revenues there's going to be. I mean, there's no doubt that, lending is going to be in the mix, and lending is going to be a big part of the business for a number of years to come. But there's also no doubt that the trend is to this fee-based, high margin income, more of passive income, and that fits in with remittances, settlements, all these things across a MasterCard network, the debit card transactions, the credit card transactions, the swipe fees, the referral fees. These are all the, margin rich, business lines that you want to be in. It's like if you're a car company, you don't want to be selling all Fireflies, you want to be selling all high-end SUVs, because if you're a company like NIO, you probably have to sell 10 Firefly vehicles to make the profit that you do from one ES8, or you probably have to sell like 20 Firefly vehicles to make the profit that you're going to make from one ES9. At least I'm just, making that up, but whatever. Let's play a game. Let's guess how high NIO will pop or how well it will flop tomorrow. That's a good question, Billy Jack. I think it'll probably go up about probably be a bunch of hype, and it'll go up like 8 or 10%, and then it'll just bleed back down, and ultimately probably in a couple of weeks it'll be back down in the fours. Now long term I love the stock, but it's just if they can do that to SoFi with 60% institutional ownership and 15% insider ownership, imagine what they can do to NIO with like 15 or 20% institutional ownership and 0 insider ownership. I know the insiders own a lot of the company, but it doesn't show up in like the ADRs and that kind of stuff. I think it's a little bit confusing. Oh, is the great M Russo here? I haven't seen you in a little bit. Welcome and hello. Welcome and hello. Hello and welcome. Yes, M Russo likes Tommy Boy. The great Paul Gardner. No one believes that. Well, yeah, you have to be an imbecile to believe the war will be over. We can stop bombing and we could say the war is over, but the consequences aren't over. The repercussions aren't over. I mean, this lasts years and years. You don't go in and just, bomb the living hell out of a country and then say, oh, we're done, forget about it. I mean, they have thousands and thousands and thousands of drones. They can take out the entire energy infrastructure in the entire Middle East should they want to do that. Now, I don't believe that serves their interest, because it, plunges them into the Stone Age. And then, what are they going to sell all that oil on the black market? They'd be much better off, coming to the table. But who do you come to the table with? It's like somebody mentioned earlier, we killed everybody, so there's nobody to negotiate with. Well, if you're the Iranian side, how do you negotiate with the United States, much less Israel? It's just every time you come to the table to quote unquote negotiate, you just have this massive bombing campaign back in the homeland. It's not really easy to come to terms with. Anyway, um, if Noto just bought 56,000 shares of SoFi for $1 million, yeah, I agree with you, Payush. I mean, there's no, greater vote of confidence than actually putting money where your mouth is. Hi, I hope all these are useful to you. Fun, fun, fun. What? All what? I don't even know what you're talking about. The comments? No, not really. They're annoying, but I can't stop reading them. Sell Mopars 40K above retail and let the paint burn in the parking lot of the California sun. Oh my God. Chrysler can't sell a car to save their lives. I mean, I just like, you saw the whole move to like EV and then all this stuff, and Chrysler is still selling these like 700 horsepower, gas burning V8s. But GAC plans to use NIO battery swap standard. Cherry is another probable partner as they came out to defend battery swap against ultra fast charging. Yeah, well, are they our partner or are they CATL's partner? That's a fair question. But yeah, I hope you're right. Anyway, in terms of CRISPR, let's move on. I know I really made no valid points at all, but CRISPR came out with some really strong data. You see, volume was still pretty weak. You see the CRISPR basically trying to break out of this little weird channel here. At least the top line is really good. Now, I often say if they bang it off the bottom of this channel over and over and over again, it basically tells me, quote unquote, bears are in charge for the moment, but those bears are looking to flip and go long on your back of your tiny wing, looking to make a living basically on your tiny wing prowess or lack thereof. But yeah, when you go off the top here, you see it's only basically two tests at the bottom here. It fell, sort of down below where I would put the trend lines. Just a little, resistance here on this line, and it's kind of gets messy here because there's really some pump and dumps coming into play. But if you look at the last, 4 or 5 months, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 distinct tests of the top. And when you just keep testing the top of the channel, I just look at it as like, market makers who are fixing the price are just, or keeping it in that range, are just kind of barely able to maintain control. If you look at the short on CRISPR, it is still excessive. And then when I show you the data that they came out with, you'll see why. Like, they could have covered at the lows. And I haven't clicked over to Seeking Alpha to read this, but I've been saying this for a long, long time. Vertex is very likely to buy out CRISPR. Now, this jabron is saying that's going to come at a market cap of like 6 to 7 billion, but that's completely unrealistic. They're never going to sell the company for, I would argue, anything less than like 15 billion. And I know that doesn't make sense with the current share price. That's why I don't think any deal is in the offing at the present time. But if you look at this article, they just did one of these conferences where this is off a market beat, but this is one of the big reasons. So, strategic pivot, they just did one of these seminars. CRISPR Therapeutics is repositioning beyond Casgevy, valuing the company roughly in thirds, Casgevy, and then these phase one assets, and then the deeper pipeline, a third, a third, a third, prioritizing new franchise cardiovascular autoimmune diseases, and then the sRNA business is also taking off. CTX 130 and Vivo data. I'll let you guys read these. I can't even pronounce all these words, but the 80% Angel PTL3 reduction biomarker effects of a 50% LDL and 60% triglyceride drop. Management is already engaging regulators to define the registrational path among multiple lipid disorder populations. Casgevy commercial update, well over 100 million 2025 sales. Patient initiations rising from about 100 to over 300. So that's a massive 3x increase. Cell collections beginning to inflect in 2025, expected the peak spend year for the franchise, while profitability timing remains with partner Vertex. Yeah, they didn't give guidance on profitability, which you always like to see. But CRISPR Therapeutics used a fireside chat at TD Cohen's healthcare conference to outline how the company is trying to broaden its identity in its first commercial product, Casgevy, and build franchise in cardiovascular disease and autoimmune conditions. So he said the year was quite pivotal, going beyond Casgevy. And then looking ahead by mid 20, this is really key because mid 2027 is not that far off. It's just over a year. So looking ahead, he said that by mid 2027, the company expects to have data from 6 programs beyond Casgevy across more than 6 indications. So if you think, and the value of some of these programs, the autoimmune, um, cardiovascular, you have to think they're going to be much, much higher value, much broader applications than Casgevy itself. From a disease area standpoint, the two highlighted franchise companies building capability around cardiovascular, CTX 310, CTX 611, CTX 320, CTX 321, CTX 340 for refractory hypertension, and then autoimmune. You have CTX 320, described as a cell therapy approach, and then sRNA. And you also have CTX 321, which they don't mention yet, but there's sort of some back and forth on which one of those is working. And they're also waiting for readout from some other companies to kind of inform, the direction they want to go in. So discussing with Vertex, I'm not going to go through this whole article, but you can basically read it for yourself and see that this company is really at a tipping point. They have the one approved product, but there's so much in the pipeline. I think they'd be insane to sell the company for $7 billion at this point. But I know it's early and I know it's speculative and I know there could be safety breakdowns and different things go wrong. But he reiterated that CRISPR expects 2025 to be the peak year of spend on Casgevy franchise, that the company cannot specify when the franchise reaches probability, and indicated that Vertex would give guidance on that. So they kind of usually defer to Vertex on those things. Am I on mute? I'm not on mute. A gentler conditioning agent in vivo homeopietic, I always said it wrong, HSC delivery, and said pediatric expansion could further expand the market. He referenced data presented at the JP Morgan conference showing durable editing of HSCs in non-human primates while noting more work remains. So reading this data on CX310, in vivo data regulatory path questions, coming out party for its vivo platform with the American Heart Association to the highest dose levels, CRISPR Therapeutics seen completely saturated editing of hypocytes, producing about 80% reduction because some AGLPT3 is produced outside the liver and that portion is not affected by the approach. Said the observed biomarker effects include a nearly 50% reduction in LDL cholesterol, 50% reduction in LDL cholesterol, and 60% reduction in triglycerides. You're basically solving, all the health problems in the world with just, one simple treatment. Kulkarni discussed multiple potential subpopulations for development, severe hypertriglyceridemia. He referenced triglycerides above 800, mixed dyslipidemia. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce these things. I'm not a doctor, if you couldn't tell. Would I be doing this? Of course not. Oh, yes, I'm an MD, PhD, but I decide to make some shitty YouTube channel and spend my time doing that. The familial including homozygous FA. I'm not going to try to read this to you because I can't even pronounce the words, but if you start to look at what they've got going on, then you get into the CTX 320, CTX 321, CTX 340. There is so much potential in this company to transform medicine completely, transform how you approach medicine from disease management, from symptom management to actual functional cures of the root cause, which are genetic mutations. They go in, they edit genes, they can clip genes, add genes, erase genes, because CRISPR is a platform. It is not a product. The infinite products can come from this platform. It's a technology. It's a technology. It's not a one-off. So that's really critical to understand. What somebody would be buying them out would not just be buying, these current pipeline. They'll be buying the future. And there's also the data. Lipid nanoparticle platform is very safe. Any minor LFT increases are self-resolving. He said regulators are very, very supportive of gene editing, and referenced that Intellia had come off clinical hold today. I think Intellia had one patient die of something, and they put him on a hold for I think that's been 4 or 5 months ago now, if memory serves. But for CTX 340 refractory hypertension, program targets, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to try to read all this stuff and just mispronounce everything, make myself look like an even bigger fat-ish hole than I already do. So let's move on. But I would encourage you guys to read this article in Market Beat if you want to get a little more insight on what's going on. In terms of SMCI, guys, up about 2% today, 30. I mean, if you look at this, not for nothing, but they were trying to hold it at this level back through April, and they did a pretty good job of it. And then they've been holding it at essentially the same level for, I would say the last 4 or 5 months. And why are they holding it there at these lows? I mean, you expect this ER to give you a big pop, but it just doesn't. Let's take a look at the chart in just a little bit more detail, if you will. And if you go back out, just zoom back out on this thing, it was held in this same channel, for the second half of 2023. And then what happened when it was held, flat? It's essentially it just had this massive breakout to 125. I mean, it was held flat here just much more briefly, big breakout to 66, and then this wasn't even really held. But when you see that algo hold the stock at the lows off this line, they're trying to buy your shares at that price. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Why are they trying to buy your shares at the lows? So they can run the stock up and dump them back on your happy no good ass right at the top, because that's what you do. You sell the dip and you smell the rip because you suck. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Yeah, Mr. Premium the option. I think SoFi is still SoFly and Nito is still Nito. Frito Bendio. No, I never heard you say is Nito still Nito, but I like to eat some Cheetos right about now. Quick question: if I had 50K and already put 20K in SMCX, would you put the other 30K in now and wait for a dip with the war going on? I mean, the only thing I can tell you on that, I can't, Nafa Fepo, Mac P, I can't necessarily give you financial advice, but in terms of this chart, if you zoom out way, way out, you see this trend. It's like coming right through, and then they dipped this and held it. So I'm looking at this company, with a run rate of like 50 billion in sales based on last quarter. I know margins are down, but I think that's going to again improve with data center building blocks. To be trading at a market cap under last year's sales while being profitable, while having pretty solid balance sheet. Now, part of that is the accounting stuff and self-inflicted wounds, shooting yourself in the foot despite your wiener, but we've all been there a time or two. Um, I just think the trend here is unmistakable. The sales trends, the demand, AI. Now, if the world and the economy and everything starts to fall apart, obviously all bets are off. But I guess my answer to your question is I feel very, very comfortable buying the stock here, because I see almost no downside, if unless just complete disaster strikes and there's a bunch more accounting stuff or something like that. And I just see a tremendous amount of upside. Now it's easy to wait and say, hey, the war might drive the stock considerably lower, and that's true, but you're not, I wouldn't say market timing. I don't want to put it in a negative context. You're sort of responding to the catalyst. I keep getting these damn hairs in my mouth. These long hair. Now I'm to the point where if I like chew wrong, I get my hair in my mouth. Ridiculous. I'd be like one of those guys who's constantly doing that, slicking his hair behind his ears. Yes, Poto. Where do you realistically think we get SMCI by October of this year? If this is a big if, okay, but if you keep that run rate up or even increase it where they're selling 13 billion, 12, 13 billion dollars a quarter, um, I think, listen, where is it going to go? Where does the price actually go? It's very, very hard, but at certain point it should start to respect normal industry multiples, price to sales, EPS. You want to see that EPS growth. So obviously what everybody wants to see, it's number one metric that anybody uses, any stock whatsoever. But you should take solace in the fact that Dell had this massive pop on AI demand and their gross margins were the same as SMCI. I said mid-single digits. And then I think Hewlett Packard just got a pop, for similar demand on AI. Like those guys' core businesses are basically stagnant dog shit, just tepid diarrhea, if you know what I mean. You know what I mean? Oh, you ever have a tenant top load you? I had that happen where they move out and they drop a deuce in the toilet tank. So every time you flush, you get this kind of rusty, smelly water coming out. Not quite sure why. Then the toilet plugs up, the plunger plugs up, you lift the tank. Top load. Oh, it's the gift that keeps on giving. People like it at parties and stuff too. Just kind of stand up on the toilet and abuse the tank. I don't know why. Who else has been top loaded besides me? Nobody. SMCI calls for the win. Rocket Red countdown liftoff. I like it, Jeff. Fantastic hair. Thank you, Mac P. I appreciate it. I assume you're talking to the great Sean Vaughn. Are these comments on mute? They're not on mute. Thanks, Sean. That's pretty funny. I can kind of see the light there. Oh, stay for the light into the night, holding the love I've known in my life. Supposed to do that song for somebody, but I just don't have the guts. Like I haven't sang in so long. I don't have any headphones. I don't have any in ears. I'm off key. But this is a song I heard before. I don't know if you guys saw that documentary they did with Rick Rubin, uh, the Avett Brothers, but incredible. I have a lot of their records. I sort of knew them before, but I never really knew that song was kind of a newer song that just came out. I had some of their older records when they're totally unknown. I only like bands that are totally unknown, you know, because I don't like anybody else to know what I'm listening to. Like, oh, that's a great song. What are you listening to? I'm like, I'm not telling you. I'm not telling you. That was funny, Sean. I like it. You're getting funnier as you go. This channel's rubbing off on you. El guapo gordo, Doctor un poco, indeed. Yes, I like your name, El guapo gordo. That's pretty good. I kind of consider myself in that vein as well. I think the Tevis 3000 is into, yeah, I think it's the noise canceling that gets it. I am also at capacity. Yeah, I don't know if you guys can hear the Tevis 3000. Let's circle back. Let's circle back. Let's circle back. Let's circle. DJ. It's obnoxious. I like these noisemakers. I also have just a regular one that does like farting and stuff. These are all dead. I think you're right. The batteries are all dead. All right, it's all as to quote the great Al Pacino, it's all shit. SMCX. Are you selling SMCI at 30 or 60? I have no plans to sell SMCI. I think SMCI could grow, quite a lot for the next 3 to 5 years. And this is a terrible channel, not a lurker. What the hell are you talking about? Have you watched the show, Not a Lurker? It is absolute stupidity. But yeah, if you just look at this breakout quarter, I mean, the beat there. Look at the beat. I mean, they were expecting 50 cents, gave them 70 cents. Giving the people what they want. Please, Hammer, don't hurt them. I like to say. And then just taking a look at the chart. Let's look a little bit shorter term on a chart here just for shits and giggles. You can see just the level of price fixing here and how, kind of draconian and heavy-handed it is. And like I said, you see big buys coming in here and then the waterfall effect, the firefly effect, whatever it is. Some big green candles, but volume has been a little bit moderate here, but you do see some surges of buying come in. In terms of the short on SMCI, we could take a look at that if you guys want to. SLS has been doing pretty well too, so I want to thank who gave me that stock. I can't remember. But whoever gave me that stock, I already owned a little bit, but you got me to buy more, and I'm glad you did. HP projects revenue above estimates, focusing on higher margin network orders. That's pretty smart of them. NVIDIA planning to launch open source AI agent platform. EchoStar's chief legal counsel Manson sells shares worth 2.18 million. Why is all the SMCI channel just news about HP? I don't get it. I don't get it. But yeah, only 16.32% on the short, but let's see, cost to borrow very low, utilization low. They have a lot of shares on loan versus the short interest. So that would lead me to believe in my caveman brain that they could definitely attack the stock should they want to. But institutional ownership on SMCI has been very, very strong and it continues to be strong. So you don't really have to worry about things from that perspective. So yeah, the accumulation score has been low. Actually came down just a touch, which is not great. Yeah, the fund sentiment score was even lower than that, but it's still pretty bleak. Put call ratio is essentially neutral. You see EMC Capital selling out, HSBC increasing, and then HSBC getting out of their short position. Reflection bought a whopping 779 shares. Yeehaw. Um, what else is going on here? Sorry, guys. Send a quick text. Um, yeah, but I totally forgot what I was talking about. But in terms of super micro, I think the chart is looking very, very poised for a breakout. You know, obviously you see when the last time they held it here is just massive breakout to the upside. And that's really why you hold the stock at the lows, is to run it up. There's not a lot of other reasons. In terms of IOVA, very strong volume again. What you notice about IOVA, which is just so dumb, is the shorts could have covered this thing, you know, down at the lows, but they chose not to. There's still 33.53% short interest on the stock. Cost to borrow is low. Now, cost to borrow on prop, I hate to keep jumping around like a hamster on crack, but the cost to borrow on prop was much higher. So when you look at cost to borrow prop, this is average 963, min 932, and max 10.26. But it's a very tightly controlled range. So I think the lenders are the shorts, are the bars, are the longs, are just manipulating the stock as much as they can, holding it down for as long as they can. If you look at IOVA, I mean, this breakout is extremely convincing. Obviously, it filled this gap here, but this gap that came down from 521, that's now being filled. And you just see this massive rush of volume come in. And, you know, shorts could have covered down here at under $2, way under $2 just in November, but they didn't. And now the stock that was under $2 sitting at 550, and there's no end in sight. What continues? People like, is there more upside? Absolutely, there's more upside, because these guys are sitting on a lung cancer therapy that could be the absolute best in class, could become the standard of care. Now, if you become the standard of care, or even, you know, a secondary standard or an adjunct standard, you're out in an annex somewhere, that is worth so much more than melanoma. There was, you know, I've heard written analysis that says it's worth 8 times as much. My analysis suggests it would be worth 15 or 20 times as much at a minimum. Did you know that PAG's book value is 995, where SOFI book value is lower than PAG's? Earning is also better. I know you like PAG's, Michael Anthony. I get it. I get it. I didn't know that, but I don't care. Been listening for over a year. Oh, vey. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. I need to learn more about it. But this OpenClaw AI tool is supposedly a game changer. Barcode stock. I'll Venmo you some funds for new batteries in the barbecue venture. Thanks, Jeff. I appreciate it. I don't have Venmo. I only have Zelle. I don't have Cash App. I don't have anything. And one of the stupidest buys of my life, I sold 2,500 of my 10X at 17 that I bought at 3. I was supposed to use that money to get a new wooden fence. Now I'm getting a brick wall and a new pool. Well, nothing wrong with that. Yeah, you did pretty well, because 10X is pulled all the way back to what pulled just back into the tens. I think now maybe it popped back up to 11 or 12. I'm long term with 10X. I want to get some of that money that I can't even remember the name of their drug right now. Can't remember it. God damn it. I know it's for HPEF, and it's levosimendan. Yeah, levosimendan. And then they also have aminatib, which is Dr. Rich's drug. But I haven't been studying that company as closely, because I know it's going to be a while, and I know they're doing like 4 phase 3s, and then they're 10X is going to invent a phase 4. They're just going to the FDA like, we know you've already approved our drug, but we don't want to get any revenues coming in. Can we just do some more phase 4s? Just pay ourselves and raise some more money with raw capital and Oppenheimer, and just shoe our shareholders straight in the balls. But yeah, so you filled this gap, and then I really think IOVA, I don't even think it's gonna, I mean, there's no resistance for me before $7, $7.30, $7.40, in that range. But I actually expect, believe it or not, I think it'll challenge this level here at around $11, maybe even 12.50. I just think there's so much upside on this thing, and shorts are going to get pushed, shorts are going to get broken, and they're going to have to cover. There's not that many shares available. There's very high institutional ownership. There's not that much insider ownership. There's a lot of retail in the stock, and obviously they're easy to push around with our tiny wing sensibilities, but you'll have to just see what happens there. How long have I been talking? Oh my God, an hour and 20 minutes. Nobody's watching. Jesus Christmas. What is wrong with me? And then if you look at prop, I mean, prop is still in the channel. And I know, was it Payush or somebody was saying they're going to let it run up a bit and then just suppress it back into the channel. And that's very possible. But this was holding in this channel because everyone was tepid, on the data, the reserves, and if they're, if they were doing 28,000 barrels per day equivalent at the end of the year, perhaps right now they'll, because they'll update that. They'll not only give the last quarter's earnings, but they'll say, what is our current run rate? So if maybe they're doing 30,000, 32,000 barrels a day as of now, I think it gets repriced to the upside quite happily. And obviously the proven reserves are quite extraordinary, but I was mentioning this to somebody else, these mega banks that loaned them all this money, they don't do it on faith. They don't go, okay, you say there's oil and gas under there, we take your word. They hire their own experts. They have their own experts. These banks have specific professionals, then crews, then teams that analyze these oil and gas companies, these sort of smaller players and mid-sized players, and they have to do careful analysis on their ground, and not only their ground, but their team. So I think this Fromer guy was the one who they had confidence in, not Ed Kovalchek or whatever from Born on the Fourth of July, or that other old dude who's just, yeah, guy was like 85. What are you going to do? Fromer's pretty old too, but there's no reason he couldn't be in this role for some time. And he's probably the best person you could think of to hire in the Denver Julesburg basin. You got some good ground there. Got some good ground, in Denver. What's a Denver accent? Like, hey, bro, what's up? I don't know. He sounds like Nate Diaz. Fuck that dude. Stockton. Fuck you, bro. Stockton. Hey, I want to ask you about your technical approach to the fight. Are you going to start fast? Fuck you, bro. Stockton. Fuck you, man. Stockton, bro. Fuck you. Dude, that pretty much answers all your questions. I love Nate Diaz. I'm not even an MMA guy. I think MMA people are super annoying, but especially where I live, it's like kind of the U.S. birthplace of jiu-jitsu. All the Gracies are here and stuff, and there's always like the good guys who are real practitioners. They never start trouble. But if you're a bouncer, there's so many guys who just like take like one jujitsu lesson and think they're gonna beat me up or something. Okay, bud, try that out and see how it works out for you. I know there's a million people out in the world that could kick my ass that are really trained and really deadly, but those aren't the people that tend to cause trouble. It tends to be the guy with like a yellow belt, like I don't know, some kind of karate or like kung fu, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I took some." I'm like, "Dude, are you serious, bro? You're so drunk. You don't know how to fight. I don't care what you took." Like class doesn't really prepare you from just being pummeled in the face. I've been punched in the face so many times I can't even count. Oh, it's not easy being me. It's not easy being a fat kid. Everybody just wants a piece of your ass. I mean, I don't mean that like in a sexual way. They just want to pummel you. Think you're an easy target. Huge mistake with me, but anyway, I don't know. Yeah. Guys, I got to end this video. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. The Great Billy Jack and the Butt Crack Boys. Cornbread's still here. Yeah, there's about 50 people actually watching. Most women won't say that about me. Billy Jack. Billy Jack, you're funny, man. I like you. Mopar, have my wife waiting in the car, waiting to go to Mopar, get the hell out of here. Guys, for that reason, because I don't want to be responsible for breaking up Mopar's marriage, but guys, Prairie has a ton of upside. It had a ton of upside even before this spike in energy prices. And I know some of their, a lot of their production is hedged in terms of the price they're going to get. But if they start exceeding those production levels, they're going to have more and more they can sell out on the open market. And I think it still very bodes well for the future because they're only hedged for like the next year or so. And if you have, long-term turmoil in the Middle East, these energy prices could stay elevated for years and years. Just, I hope there's an off-ramp. I hope there's a solution. I definitely want to see regime change because I think the regime is evil. But the question is, how do you do it? Did they have any plan? Even everybody comes out, they say, oh, it's not a regime change war. It's not a, war of choice. It's not a war at all. It's like, you got like these proxies like Lindsey Graham out there just getting angry and ranting when somebody asks them, like, what is they're like, hey, it don't matter. It doesn't matter. Like, this is the best money we ever spent. Like, Lindsey Graham sounds like a combination of like Jimmy Carter and Barney Fife. I don't know, that hair he's working, that hair is pretty glorious, I gotta say. Big Bullum head. Anyway, guys, in terms of Mopar's wife, we got to end this stream because definitely we don't want any domestic discord on our watch. But I want to thank Not a Lurker. I want to thank the great Carl Seamark, the great Keen's Tam, of course, Jay Money, the great Not a Lurker, Billy Jack. Mac P was active on the boards today. Appreciate you, Mac P. Always appreciate the great Michael Anthony. He wants you buying pags. He wants you buying pags, guys. Buy it, buy it, buy it. Nafafepo, nafafepo. Buy pags, buy pags. This Michael Anthony talking. I can make you buy pags, baby. I will take your passions. Dude, I'm totally weak, man. I am so fucking weak. It's ridiculous. Peace. I'm out. Bitches, you basic bitches. And go have some dinner. Go take care of your wife, Mopar. May give her a little nookie tonight. She'll love you.